Hey, what's up? Hello, this is Auntie Cubana coming back at you with another episode of the Unladylike Lounge podcast. And today I am joined by Theo. Theo, how are you today?
I'm great, thank you. I'm absolutely buzzing all day. I'm like so excited to go.
Yes, I am so excited to have you here with us, especially being that you have just an unladylike take on a subject that we are so looking forward and needing to hear. And why don't you brag on yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what we'll be talking about today.
So I'm Theodora. I'm a spiritual seer, healer, a guide, and I work specifically with God Code healing, which is basically about, in essence, kind of saying, I'm stuck in this area of my life and giving your free will over to a higher power so that they can basically sort your shit out. Like,
awesome. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So now when we think of the term like seer, healer, guide, things of that nature, we don't necessarily think of a higher power. We kind of think more on the spirituality side of things. Can you tell us how that kind of correlates with, the higher power aspect of things for our audience members who may be confused?
Yeah. So, I just a little bit about my kind of background and my spiritual journey. I was not spiritual in any way, shape, or form. I wasn't religious, nothing. Like, if I walked into a church, I was so full of shame that I used to feel like I was going to burst into flames. Like, genuinely, it was just, I could not have been further from where I feel like I am now. And then, like 8 years ago, basically, I was at the lowest point in my life I'd ever been. My father had just died. I had complex PTSD. I was struggling with a lot of addiction. I was binge eating. Like, I could not cope in any way, shape, or form with what life had thrown at me and was continuing to throw at me. And I'd gone to see a chiropractor, and because I had this weird shooting pain go up my neck and into my brain, I was like, that doesn't feel so great. So I went normal. Yeah. And so I went to this chiropractor, and she sorted me out. But then she said, look, I'm also a medium, and there's a man here who wants to speak to you. And I was like, what on earth? This is absolute nah. Like, I was such a skeptic. I didn't believe in any of it. And it turned out to be my dad.
And my gosh.
Yeah. And he said so many things that even I didn't understand at the time. And it wasn't until I had spoken to my mom, or, the references were so precise. I get chills even now just thinking about it. And that kind of opened me up to, okay, there's something else going on apart from what I'm experiencing right now.
Right.
And then I kind of would go and see people for other readings, and they were like, you're a healer, you're going to do energy healing, you're going to do Reiki, like, this is your path. Like, you can choose to go down this spiritual path. She actually said, she was like, you can open Pandora's box, but once you open it, you cannot shut it again.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And I just went, well, can't be worse than anything that's already happened. So yeah, get it open.
Let's go ahead and see what's in there.
Yeah, exactly. And so that then from that point on, everything just started to spiral. And I was learning about energy and being a psychic and doing mediumship work and all of that kind of stuff. And then I was also in therapy as well, because I wanted to make sure that all of this stuff that was happening to me wasn't also me just having some other kind of mental breakdown. And, because when you start having visions or sensing or hearing things, I was like, okay, I also need to be working through my trauma as well as experiencing all of this stuff.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, things just kind of went on. And then when I really experienced energy healing, the shifts that were happening to me in my own healing were just catapulting me forward. I was having bigger shifts in a week than I'd had in previous 3 years.
Wow.
yeah. And so, you know, I was really like, okay, this, if I want to get through this trauma that I've experienced, doing standard psychotherapy and mixing it with energy healing is the way forward, 100%.
Absolutely.
And so, and kind of, I discovered I was a healer. I was sitting in a meditation, and it was like, oh, sit behind this tree and take healing for yourself. And then a list of 5 people's names came up in my head. And I was like, all right, well, I'll just send it to them instead. And, you know, that was the end of that. But then over the next week, I bumped into each of those 5 people, which is
Stop it.
weird enough in itself. But I'd done the meditation on the Wednesday night, and I'd say like, oh, how are you? And they were like, oh, I've not been great, or I've had this. And they're like, but Wednesday night or Thursday morning, I woke up and I just felt better.
Whoa.
Yeah. And after the 3rd person said it to me, I was like, okay, there's something in this. Obviously, I feel some sort of healing ability. So then I did a Reiki course, and so that I knew that I was doing healing properly, as it, you know, within the parameters of things. And then I moved to angelic healing, and I was doing that. I ran a multi-award-winning Reiki business for 4.5 years, working with humans, but also working with horses.
Really?
Yeah, which, because at the end of the day, it doesn't, you know, it's just about, I've always been into horses and things like that, but really it's about blending your energy with theirs to be able to communicate, but also to be able to really shift, you know, what's stored, just like we would for humans. But it was really amazing to be able to work with both species, I guess.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
And then, but then probably a year, maybe a year or 2 ago, I started having different kind of visions, and they were predominantly God. They were like God would appear in my visions, or he would, you know, there'd be a lightning bolt or this. And yeah, and the work that I started to do felt different. And it was just personally, to begin with, like this energy, you know, this God energy that I was working with was only just for my own healing. I wasn't working with clients, but I was learning so many different techniques and kind of realizing that I could do different things working with this energy.
Okay.
And I kind of knew, I was getting this feeling of like the standard Reiki just wasn't enough for me. Like I knew I was capable of holding more of this energy and bringing more to people, doing more. But I didn't really know the way to go. And I actually prayed one night. I just said, look, can you just show me what I'm meant to do next? And the next morning I got an email from someone I had been following for a number of years. And she was like, this is the God Code course. It's the first one we're doing. And I was like, boom, sign me up. I'm in.
Oh my gosh, this is intense.
Yeah, it has been intense.
How do you deal with, I mean, all of these things coming into your life and these visions and, you know, the healing and the meditation and everything? This must have been overwhelming of sorts, just to kind of, like you said, open Pandora's box. And once you open it, you can't close it. How was that transition from being, you know, as you said, you weren't spiritual at all prior to all of a sudden having these visions and having these awakenings, for lack of a better term?
Sometimes it has been overwhelming. But the thing is, because it correlated at the same time as my trauma healing, actually the spiritual side of things was like the nice bit of life.
Okay.
because I was dealing with, you know, I mean, and when I was saying I was dealing with my trauma, like, I mean, I had a nervous breakdown in 2020. There was a lot going on.
Absolutely. Sorry, having technical difficulties here. I apologize, everybody. Let me just fix that real quick. All right. I apologize. And we're back. Sorry about that.
So the spiritual, you know, compared to what I was experiencing physically, but it didn't really feel like that much. It was kind of like, oh, okay. But I think part of my healing process has been is learning how to be able to hold that energy. And I even this week, you know, I had had this massive kind of divine moment, and I felt so like full of joy, love, and then but then I felt like I dropped it. And and I said, because I work very closely with Mother Mary, and she came through to me, and I said to her, I was like, why me? Like, why is all this happening to me? What's going on? Like, what is the point?
Right.
And I feel like I've failed, because I feel like I've been given this incredible gift, and sometimes I just can't hold, or it feels like I can't hold that much energy yet.
Right.
And what she said to me, she said, you've been given this because of the purity of your heart.
Wow.
And she was like, you haven't failed, you're learning.
Precisely.
Yeah. And it's, and that's the thing, like for so much of this spiritual journey it's all just been learning. And I haven't learned through books or going searching for this stuff. Like, this stuff just happens. I just get these downloads and I have these visions, and the weird shit just happens to me.
Oh my goodness.
And then I'll find a book afterwards, or then I'll hear a podcast about it or something. Do you know what I mean? So it's like to kind of explain what that experience was.
Okay.
But it kind of, I don't know, I think for me, and what I kind of really want to bring to people through not only the sessions, but the community space that I'm building, is a spiritual space where it's okay to not be perfect, and it's okay to go, fuck, this is a lot.
Hard.
And to also to not have to look like all the spiritual people do on Instagram, and do you know what I mean? Like, to have actually this like fake, where it's not, I don't know, it just, I'm like,
to have that image, you don't have to have that. Yes.
Yeah,
for sure.
Like my image is not that. Like, when I'm doing my videos for Instagram, whatever, I'm out walking my dogs. Like, that's the time that I'm doing stuff. So I'm a bit sweaty and I'm probably a bit out of breath. And do you know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
Yeah, but that's actually, when I walk, that's when I feel, that's like my meditation.
Okay.
So it can be when I get like the most of my downloads, or things like that sometimes. So I don't know. It's just, I think it's about really being able to be authentically yourself.
Yes.
And being able to kind of say, I don't understand this, because actually what's happening to me is beyond the realms of the mind, but I'm experiencing it, and okay, and I'm just going to trust that whatever's happening to me is happening because I am capable of that.
Absolutely. It sounds like it almost comes with a sense of imposter syndrome a little bit. Almost like I have this gift, but what, like, am I capable of carrying it? Am I capable of, using it the way that it's meant to be used? And as you said, it's all a learning experience. You've never failed. You're simply learning. Looking back on your life prior to this healing journey and kind of opening that Pandora's box, do you recognize any of your qualities and capabilities as a healer from prior to this kind of awakening?
I think I've always been very good at connecting with people.
Okay.
And I always have had quite a good sense of humor, and I was always a bit different. But I think trauma does that to you. If you've had a traumatic childhood, you can often feel a bit weird, and you don't react in the same way as like normal people or whatever. But and I think actually I understand that, hypervigilance is a gift, actually. The trauma that I went through, it taught me how to read people.
Okay.
Really. It taught me how to, be able to read so well that actually I didn't. When I started to bring in the spiritual side of things, I was like, oh, okay, well, I can already do this, because actually I'd been doing it in a trauma setting kind of growing up.
For sure.
So again, it's kind of, at the time I wouldn't have ever thought that that would have served me or been able to be a positive, but
Absolutely.
now I understand that. I understand why it hasn't been as difficult for me to learn how to read energy, because I was brought up doing that anyway.
Yes. Yes, 1000%. So it's like these gifts have always been there. It was just a matter of kind of learning how to use them and how to direct them in a sense.
Yeah. And I think a big part of my journey has been about learning the difference, but you have to be strong in your own energy and really know who you are, how you feel, how you process things, and be so connected to yourself, so that you can then tell the difference between, okay, is this mine or is this someone else's, or is this like my dead Aunt Maud, or like whose energy am I feeling right now? That was one of the first things that I did in the kind of spiritual journeying, was being able to learn what's mine, what's someone else's, what's psychic, what's mediumship, what's animal.
Now, how do you I feel like there's so many different ways that that kind of energy could go, because as you said, is this mine? Is this my great aunt Maud? Is this, whose is this? How do you go about, because I feel like we have followers and audience members who kind of have a sense of like they could be on this kind of journey as well, and they're not quite sure how to figure out, is this my energy? Is this so and so's energy? How do you kind of decipher that?
I think the best way to begin is to get an energy clearing.
Okay.
Because and you can do that in lots of ways. Like, part of that is through God coding, but there are lots, you can have a standard Reiki set. Like, it depends on what level you want to go to. But I think sometimes it comes down to boundaries.
Okay.
You kind of, because we can become enmeshed in other people's stuff, and you can feel sometimes if someone's like, you call them like an energy vampire, like you just walk in, you're like, oh man, their vibes are off.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, but if you're not kind of clear with your energy boundary, it can be quite easy to kind of get sucked in by those people, or kind of always feel that it's a bit of a process. And everybody's going to find the right healing thing for them. But the thing that I really love, one of the things that I really love about God coding, is that it's such a completely thorough way to be able to clear out your energy field, because it does it through the quantum. So it goes, it's all lifetimes. It clears the Akashic records. It clears everything, space, time, dimensions, like from the seed point of the creation of you. We clear everything. We clear out your mind, body, soul, spirit, heart, meridians, chakras, like the whole thing gets cleared out. And this is what, when I found it, I was like, oh yes, I don't need to go to like 7 different healers. I can just do this and get it all done at once, because that's the thing, when you're working with that ultimate creation power, God, universe, source, whatever you want to call it for your own journey. I call it God because that's just how I've developed into that. But I'm like, this is the best value for money energy healing I've come across.
Absolutely. Being able to clear all of that from the very beginning is just mind-blowing that that's even possible. Because when we think of like clearing your energies, at least for me, I can't speak for anybody else, but when I stop and think of kind of clearing my energy, I think of something that's so short term and so just temporary that it's insane to me almost. Like, how the fuck do you clear all of that over all space, all time, all everything? Like, that's mind blowing. How can people get started with God coding, with Reiki, any of these kinds of things that they're interested in learning more about?
So, I mean, my website is www.seerhealerguide.co.uk.
Okay.
There's information on there, but where you can book one-to-one sessions if you just instantly feel like, oh my God, yes, this is what I need, then obviously that option is there. If you kind of want to dip your toe in a little bit, find out more about it and, spend more time with me or whatever. I also have a community space on Mighty through the Mighty Network, where people they get their first month free.
Wow.
And each week on a Wednesday at 8 o'clock British time, I do a group event. So one week we'll do a group God code healing. So everybody can just come and join in on a specific topic. So the last topic was just receive.
Okay.
And then the next one is victim mentality. So I just get a kind of download on what each one is going to be. The week after that, we have a community cuppa. So we kind of all get together and it's totally informal. It's just everybody having a chat with a cup of tea. And, people turn up in like their dressing gowns and hoodies and everyone's just chilling. But also talking about, building that community and really connecting with each other and talking about the shifts that we've experienced since the code healing the week before.
Wonderful.
And then week 3 is like a Q&A session. So you can ask me anything. You can ask me about spiritual stuff, or you can ask a specific question and I can like channel the answer that you need, or you can ask the community a question. It's a really kind of round table type vibe.
Awesome.
And then the 4th week at the moment is kind of a bit of a wild card. It's down to whatever either comes up or what the community want.
Okay.
So that's kind of, and then obviously there's a monthly subscription, but it's much less than the one-to-one sessions. But, even in the God code sessions, the group sessions, people are experiencing massive shifts. We like one woman, she'd been stuck in this job that she was really struggling with, and 2 days later she had a meeting with her boss and she literally went, fuck this, I quit, and walked out.
And for her
now has started her own business and now that's taking off. And she was like, I cannot believe how quickly these changes are happening and how like completely easy all of this new stuff feels. And she was like, and it's 100% down to that session. So
wow, that is remarkable. I am so excited to first of all, I'm definitely signing up for that month 100%. Where can my audience, we've already gone over your website, but one more time for the audience, where can they follow you, your journey, any social medias that you'd like to include, anything of that nature?
So my handle on Instagram is theodora.shg.
Okay.
And on Facebook, it's again, Theodora Spiritual Seer Healer Guide. So I do most of the content and stuff on Instagram, but everything is taken over to Facebook. But that's where, I'll post more stories and kind of things like that. But really, I think the community is where I'd really like to kind of be able to connect with people on more of that one-to-one basis, because I think social media is a great way for people to be able to understand your vibe and what you're about. But I think because of algorithms and ads and all that kind of stuff, it can be difficult to really create that kind of community. Like you used to see on Instagram, you'd see the same people commenting on stuff and you kind of knew you had a crew, and that's just kind of gone now, I think. So that's really what I think for me, the community, I felt really alone through a lot of my spiritual awakening. And so I just wanted to create a space where people could just could just find down to earth spiritual people, that are still having real life experiences and, can just go, oh, do you know what? Like today I've just felt like shit. And, and that, that's what we had in the community cuppa last week. Someone was like, I've had such a shit day. And then we just laughed the entire of the hour. And
I
after,
love it.
it's like, oh, it just feels so great, and I'm so grateful, you know. And it's really small still at the moment, but
Okay.
but it doesn't matter, because actually it's about the people that we've got in it, and it's, you know, I'm always going to be there.
Absolutely. And that's a major bonus.
Yeah.
For sure.
So,
And it's nice to have a safe space for people to come into their own and feel like, you know, they're not alone on this journey. Know that that somebody else has kind of paved the way to kind of guide them and help them, and kind of make that journey a little less difficult and a little less complicated to understand. So I love the fact that you created that safe space for everybody.
yeah. And I mean, for people that want to work with me directly, one-to-one on a longer term basis, there's also mentoring packages available.
Okay.
Rather than just the 1 hour God Code sessions, there are also 3 hour, like really deep dive sessions. And there's also 3-month and 6-month mentoring available, which includes, you know, you get like the Mighty membership for free during that time, and you get access to me outside, and not just God Code healing, but also like other connection calls. And, you know, if you're on the 6-month package, you can WhatsApp me if you want, like, you know, there's whole levels of support depending on what you want and what you're needing and what you're going through. So
Wonderful. What kind of last words or any kind of wisdom, guidance, knowledge, anything of that nature would you have to leave our audience members with?
In my experience, the path to divinity and the pathway to God has been through finding and removing the blocks to unconditional love within myself. And I think that's one of the biggest resistances. That was what I found to be the biggest resistance to working with that higher power, because in my belief and experience, all that energy is unconditional love. And we can really find that. We find that above by finding it within ourselves.
Absolutely.
And that's what creates the greatest change in our life and within us on all aspects. And that's what I really hope to be able to help people to find and create, is that positive change within themselves and their lives.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Theodora. It has been a pleasure having you with us today for an unladylike take on spiritual healing, seeing and being a guide, and all of the wonderful things. For anybody who missed any of her social media handles or her website, never fear. You already know I'm going to put it in the description box below, as well as with our audio episode once that's converted. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure. And to our audience members, you already know I love you fiercely.